miracles don't happen. So, how do you come to that conclusion?
Well, I don't believe in the supernatural.
Okay, but how do you come to the conclusion that miracles don't happen? So, let me ask you this.
Because I don't believe in the supernatural.
Okay, so
I don't think aliens built the pyramids. There.
Yeah, that's fine.
Aliens could exist, but I really don't think they've been to Earth and are responsible for anything that's ever happened on Earth. And I don't think supernatural events are the explanation for anything that's ever happened on Earth or anywhere.
Okay, so would you claim to be a Gnostic atheist or an agnostic atheist?
Agnostic?
Okay, so you're kind of making two separate claims then, right? So you're saying miracles are a supernatural event, correct?
Yeah, an unexplainable supernatural event.
Okay, and you're saying that supernatural events do not take place. They don't happen.
They could never be verified, so there would never be a justification for saying that a miracle ever occurred. So then we can just say miracles don't happen.
Well, that's false, right? So
what does that mean?
So how can you say a miracle could never be verified?
Because it's supernatural. There's no empirical method that could ever justify a miracle taking place.
Okay, so there's your problem. You're operating with.
It's not my problem. It's a problem for the miracles. They are by default really unjustifiable by definition.
No, they're only unjustifiable by using a methodology that deals with a separate category, which is what you're doing.
What does that mean?
Okay, do you know what a methodology is?
Yes.
Okay, so the scientific method is a certain methodology that deals with what is natural, correct?
Sure. What's the methodology for dealing with supernatural events?
In the same way, you can still, it's not going to be based off of like observation and repeatability, right? That's one of the things within the scientific method is it says, okay, it has to be repeatable.
Yes, I know. So what's the method?
Yeah. So let's just say that someone's healed from cancer or something to that effect. How can you repeat such an effect because they've already been healed from cancer? Do you need them to be healed from cancer again in order to fall in line with the category of the scientific method?
What? Are we assuming that we have...
Nope,
are we assuming that this person
anything.
Received medicine? Are we assuming that this person had a checkup and they had stage 4 cancer and then a year later they came in for their checkup and were cancer free and nobody interacted with that person between the time?
No, listen. I am not giving any sort of anecdotal example. I am talking within the context of a miracle, right? So let's say, hypothetically, a miracle takes place where someone is healed from cancer, no medicine, no remission. Let's just say it's a miracle. I'm just doing something, or if you want to do something a little more.
What I would say is prove it.
Wait a second. But this is what we're talking about in terms of methodology.
Yes. Prove it.
How does your methodology allow for it to be proved evidentially?
I have no idea what that means. What? If somebody had cancer and then had radiation treatment and then didn't have cancer, we would analyze the evidence. I mean,
okay,
that's just
fine. I mean, there's medical miracles that have taken place. That's not not a problem.
Okay, so you need to prove your miracle. Give me the methodology, because you said the scientific methodology is inadequate for describing how miracles happen. I agree. Okay. I don't think there is a methodology, but you said that there is. So what is it?
No, there is. It's just not going to.
What is it?
Repeatability.
Okay. It's great. So what is it?
You can say it's observation, right? So you can say, for example, you have your computer in front of you. Look up the healing of a.
This is just going to be a claim. Prove that it's a miracle.
No, it's a medical journal, peer-reviewed. I'm not here to give anecdotal claims.
I'm not asking. I'm asking for a generalization. I'm not asking for you to give me a specific example of anything. I'm telling you, like if I describe the scientific method, that is applicable in all forms of science, and it would be you could use it to verify any sort of naturalistic thing in principle.
Exactly.
What is the methodology for verifying a miracle?
My friend, that's the point.
You're not answering the question. What's the methodology?
Yes, I am. The methodology can be used in some form of the scientific method, but not within repeatability. There's not a repeatability. So can you observe a miracle? Let's say a miracle takes place, and
In
let's
principle,
just do.
you could observe a miracle, but you could never verify that it was a miracle.
I disagree.
Okay, tell me how Jesus walked on water.
That's not what my claim is right now. My
It's a
claim-
miracle, so tell me how he did it.
I have no idea. That's not.
Tell me how he divided the loaves. Okay, so we can throw that out because we have no idea how it happened, so therefore we can't assume it was a miracle. That would be an argument from personal incredulity. So how did he divide the loaves and the fishes?
Yeah, no idea. So here.
Okay, how did he turn water into wine?
Listen and stop.
How did he raise from the dead?
Would you stop interrupting?
How did
me?
How did he wake Zechariah up or whatever?
I will be happy to answer.
How did he heal
any
the
of your
leper?
questions.
No, but you can't
happy
answer
to
the question because the only way you can believe in a miracle, but you have to believe it
No.
on faith for absolutely no justification other than I don't know what it was, therefore miracle.
Listen to me very carefully. You're operating outside of the methodology.
What is the methodology? You have not given the methodology. You're just saying it's not
cutting me
repeatable.
You keep cutting me off. Do you agree or not? Like, I don't have to be here. You keep cutting me off. Let me finish my statements. Is that all right? It doesn't have to be antagonistic. We can have a cordial conversation. Whenever you're bringing up anything biblical or any of Jesus's miracles, you're going to be operating in a historical methodology that has nothing to do with empiricism or the scientific method. Nothing.
History is empirical.
When we are talking about
What kind of
historical-
statement is that? History is not empirical?
Absolutely. What historical?
What? So then there are no justifications for believing whatever happened historical because it does not deal in the realm of empiricism?
Empiricism is sensory experience. How in the world?
It's
No. Listen.
so we take in information through our senses. That's like philosophically that's empiricism, I guess.
No, history operates under a different methodology than the scientific method. It's simple. It's not contested. There is a how can you tell me?
Are archaeology and history intertwined, and is archaeology a science?
Archaeology doesn't give us information. It does not give us the conclusion or the truth of events taking place. It only gives us evidence for the events.
Okay, then where does the truth of events come from?
There is no such thing when you're looking at history as just 100% epistemic truth. We can get really close because history is good. And you mentioned Bayesian probability. You mentioned
I
Bayesian.
agree we can't have omniscience when it comes to basically anything.
No. It's not omniscience. It's just saying history is evaluated based off of probability, not based
Yeah,
off
we
of...
can't have 100% certainty. That would be omniscience about one particular thing.
Yeah, and so within the events that you mentioned, whether you're talking biblically or whether you're talking something else, those events are going to be evaluated from a historical perspective. They're not going to be evaluated based off empiricism unless you are actually there to perform some sort of sensory experience or some sort of scientific method tests, right? Would you agree or disagree?
If there's a claim about a miracle from the past, we can't verify it with the scientific method?
Correct.
Perhaps, I guess. But we could gather a whole bunch of people and pray for them and see if they if they're sick and see if they get any better. That would be a scientific test of the efficacy of miracles. Those tests have actually been done, and the results are somewhere between negative and inconclusive.
Yeah, so that's why I was giving you an example, right? So when I scrolled past your live and I saw miracles don't happen, this is basically something that was popularized by a philosopher named David Hume. Are you familiar?
Yes, no miracle can ever be assumed to be the most logical explanation because the odds of the person giving the testimony simply being wrong would have to be less likely than the miracle itself taking place, which is a logical absurdity.
Okay, so do you understand how Hume went wrong within his assertions?
No, I think his assertions are actually very well grounded because the idea
Oh, no,
that a
they've
person
been
can simply
disproven.
be mistaken being less likely than the laws of nature being randomly suspended is definitely the case.
No, Hume's problem is that he was making assertions based off of his own experience. That's it. That's the biggest problem that you can make within philosophy is some sort of assertion that, okay, this does not happen because I have not personally experienced it. I have
Name
not.
one person who's personally experienced a miracle.
Sure. Look up 16-year-old healed by gastroparesis.
Okay, prove it. Prove it was a miracle.
Look at the data.
There will be no data. Data about a supernatural event taking place. If you can't tell me how miracles work, then you have no justification for claiming that they are in operation.
Wait a second.
What do you mean?
So I think I know what you're talking about. So you're
Tell me how magic works.
What's magic?
It's in the realm of the supernatural. Tell me how magic happens. Well, we actually already did this because I asked you to tell me how Jesus performed any of his miracles, and you said you can't because it's an unjustifiable explanation.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it is evidence.
Claiming that a miracle happened to you and having zero explanation for how the miracle happened, how you know it happened, means that it's unjustifiable. Only through an argument from incredulity or through blind faith.
Wrong.
No, it's not wrong. Tell me how any miracle, prove that any miracle has ever happened. Pick any miracle you want. Go ahead.
Yeah, so look at the data that surrounds the actual events.
Data of supernatural events.
No, data of something that does not happen under any other circumstances.
That would be a supernatural event.
Yeah, that's the point.
Okay, well, you said no,
Okay,
and
let's
then
just
when
see
I
if we can find
reframed it,
some
you said
common ground. Let's see
yes.
if we can find some common ground.
So
Let me see if we can
prove
find
to
some common
me, evidentially, supernatural events taking place.
Let's see if we can find some common ground here. Do you agree that a supernatural event, it is something, right, within the context of our conversation, a supernatural event would be a divine being's intervention in a natural situation?
I suppose.
Okay, cool. So if we're operating just off of that, and then we say something that is natural is something that should be applied by some sort of scientific method. It should be repeatable, observable, all of the things that we've talked about, testable, right? And so if there is something that takes place in an event that cannot be verified using the scientific method, that cannot be verified using that specific methodology, but yet it's still something that took place, you're only going to be left with a couple of options there, right?
You could never know that it was a supernatural event.
I think you might be correlating something as, like, if something unlikely happens, that doesn't make it a miracle. I think that's where
a
this is
miracle has
lying.
to be a supernatural event. Jesus didn't walk on water by being less dense than water. It's supernatural. It's the suspension of all natural law. So if you can't explain how a miracle happens, then there's no justification for believing that it was a miracle.
But there's no
An
justification.
unknown natural explanation is by default the better explanation.
According to what? What methodology do you use to come
According
to
According to the fact that we live in a universe that is governed by natural law.
that? You understand that's a fallacy as well, right? It's an argument from ignorance.
How is that an argument from ignorance? We live in a universe that is governed by natural law.
No, it's an argument from ignorance because you're saying...
I'm saying it's the
must
most
be true.
likely one because I'm not ignorant about the fact that we live in a universe that operates according to natural law. That is the universe we appear to live in. Everybody's ignorant about the supernatural because there's no knowledge that can be ascertained about the supernatural realm.
Yeah, I would just...
So the saying that a naturalistic explanation is preferable to a supernatural one is not an argument from ignorance.
No, if you want to say it's preferable, that's fine. But based
That's
off of what?
What I said.
You're only saying it's preferable based off the denial of the other claim.
Based off of the total lack of evidence of the other claim.
That's not lack of evidence.
Yes, it is lack of evidence. There are absolutely no confirmed miracles that have ever taken place. There are no supernatural events that have been confirmed to have ever taken place.
Okay, so I'm curious then. How did you, based off of your limited experience within human population, be able to come to the conclusion a miracle has never taken place?
It's the best explanation.
No, it's not.
Does Pluto exist? Does Pluto exist?
It's a presupposition of naturalism.
Does Pluto exist?
The planet?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Wow, you've literally. I'm gonna guess you have a very limited experience and have never been to Pluto, but you're taking an absolutist stance that Pluto exists. Is that what's happening here?
No, because we can actually apply empiricism to that, right?
Yeah, but you've never been there. Yeah, you could, but you've never done it. And we could imply empiricism to claims of the supernatural.
Do you really
I
think
myself
that's
have not verified every single supernatural claim ever, but I'm perfectly happy to be like, well, if we implied empiricism, obviously it would break down and there'd be no good justification for it. Just like you've never been to Pluto, but the idea of it existing, you are comfortable taking an absolutist stance that yes, it does exist.
You're taking an absolutist stance on just presupposing naturalism is true. That's all you're doing.
I don't presuppose it. It's justified based on
it's
the universe I happen to exist in.
No, you're presupposing.
My justification for naturalism is nature, actually. So it's not just a presupposition. I don't believe it because I believe it. I believe it because of the evidence. It's grounded in evidence, not belief.
Okay, so
solely belief.
Okay, so let's replay what you just said, right? You said miracles don't happen.
I'm actually waiting for you to give me the methodology for proving miracles.
No,
because that's how this started a long time ago, and we never got anywhere with that.
I'm not going to let you escape this question.
Sure.
So specifically, you said a miracle doesn't happen.
Right?
Right.
No justification for it, so I'm perfectly comfortable saying they don't happen.
You said,
just like you've never been to Pluto, but you're perfectly comfortable saying it exists.
And
in that case, based on the evidence. In my case, based on the complete lack of evidence.
Absolutely false. Right?
What's false? That there's evidence that Pluto exists, or that there's no evidence that miracles exist, apart from arguments from incredulity?
That these are in any way analogous.
Great. So give me the methodology that substantiates miracle claims.
No, we're still not. We're not done dealing with this presupposition of naturalism, right? So if you're saying
I don't presuppose naturalism. I don't just presuppose naturalism. I think we live in a universe governed by natural law. How do I know that? Well, because I experienced that, and it's been measured countless times. So it's based in evidence. My presupposition is verified based on physical evidence. It's grounded in evidence. Your presuppositions are not grounded in evidence. They're grounded in arguments from ignorance.
The moment you say a miracle can't happen,
miracles don't happen.
Miracles don't happen. Same thing.
Miracles based on the complete lack of evidence. I'm perfectly comfortable saying that things for which there's no evidence for don't happen.
Okay, so what would the evidence be for a miracle under your worldview?
What would the evidence be?
Uh-huh.
I'm not really sure. I know it couldn't be verified. According to people like you, the scientific method is wholly inadequate for verifying them.
That's not what I've said at all. Actually,
yes, it is. You said that we cannot apply the scientific methodology to miracles. You said that.
Repeatability.
Yep.
Remember when we agreed when I said observation was fine within a miracle, right? If you see a miracle,
you could witness a miracle, but you couldn't verify it. We have to get to where's the justification for the miracle? So I said, tell me any miracle that's ever happened, and you referenced some medical thing or whatever, and look at the data. In what way does the data concretely say a supernatural, miraculous event took place? Because all that data is going to say is they don't know what happened. And an argument from incredulity is not proof of anything.
Yeah, and so they give the data based off of what did happen, right? So within the example I gave, since you haven't looked it up, I'll tell you what happened. There was a boy who was born, and he was unable to eat orally for his entire life. His entire life he had nurses, doctors, medical records. Everything was stopping him. He had what was called J-tube feeding, where it was injected directly into his stomach so that he would not die. So this boy, at 16 years old, living with what is called gastroparesis, and there's actually, Than, right, Cease?
Yes.
Yeah, so Than had this guy on his show, and they talked about it They talked about it. It's actually found within a medical journal, and it was peer reviewed. And so the kid went to a service. It was specifically a church service within the Christian denomination. He went. He was prayed for. That very night, he was able to eat for the first time orally, and they took out the jade tube. The nurses who had taken care of him, the nurses, the doctors, everything that is represented within this, we have to form a hypothesis on it, right? So, since we can say in no way has a natural event occurred where gastroparesis has reversed, even based off placebo effect, because it's mentioned within the medical journal. The placebo effect has never reversed the state of gastroparesis. Okay, so that hypothesis of the placebo effect doesn't seem like it's a really strong hypothesis.
Keep in mind, every single thing that's ever happened for the first time at one point.
Yeah, that's fine. That doesn't impact my argument. So,
it does.
Secondly,
it does. So,
but
no, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. So, secondly, we have zero natural means by which gastroparesis has ever reversed on its own. There's no such thing as remission of gastroparesis, especially after, like I said, within the hypothesis, we would say, okay, this did not take place because of any medication. It did not take place because of anything that the doctors did or a surgery or anything like that. It specifically took place after someone prayed.
Okay,
right?
so
and
what
we
happened?
add that within the hypothesis.
Okay, so what happened?
Yeah, he's able to eat orally now. He no longer requires J2
what's
feeding.
responsible? What is the force, and what are the specific changes that occurred?
He was able to eat orally.
And
What do you mean?
made that happen?
I don't understand what you're asking.
I'm asking for you to justify the claim.
So, like,
What
so you're saying
specifically? What specifically intervened and caused changes to him? I'm asking you to prove your hypothesis.
It says right
Well,
now
I
we got a bunch of I don't knows.
No, so a hypothesis, it just needs to be justified. It doesn't have to be proven.
right?
right?
So, John, you're putting yourself.
Sure. So I'm just telling. Please just let me. What specifically are the things that caused changes within him?
Well, obviously, my argument is that there is some sort of supernatural intervention in a
How
natural
does it
situation.
work? What did it do?
All it would take is a moral agent, being God, to intervene and heal the body. That's it.
Or it could have been Spanky the invisible hippopotamus wizard who has magical powers.
Or some natural explanation that we don't have access
Or Harry
to yet.
Potter.
So if you want to add that, if you want to add that into your hypothesis, then
Aha!
you would have.
Bingo. There are an infinite number of those things. And you cannot assign a single one of them any probability, because assigning any of them any probability means they add up to infinity.
That's not true. So
What the
John, there's another problem here.
That
If you
is
think-
literally exactly how it works.
no, that's not how it works.
What do you mean that's not how it works? If you have an infinite number
Here,
of
let me talk to this guy for a second,
explanations, you cannot assign any of them a probability because the odds will add up to infinity.
No, so what you can do.
What do you mean
is
no? No. Explain what the hell you mean by no. Because that's
I
an
would
unbelievable
love to.
statement.
I would love to. You just have to stop.
How many
interrupting me.
possible explanations for what happened to this boy are there?
Yeah, I've heard your question. Will you let me
It's
answer
an
now?
infinite number. We're doing yes or no for now. How many explanations for what happened are there?
How can I answer that with yes or no? Just curious.
Oh, sorry. So, are there an infinite number of possibilities for what happened? Yes or no?
I would not say there are an infinite number, no.
Why not? You said
Easy.
you said Spanky the hippopotamus was a possible explanation. Harry Potter, whatever.
No, I said you can add those within your hypothesis, but then you have
Yeah,
to justify
exactly,
it.
because they are possible explanations.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
According to what?
What do you mean according to what? We can just presuppose them, I guess.
Remember, this is a
That's not my
hypothesis.
claim. My hypothesis specifically deals with prayer to a specific deity.
John, if somebody came to you,
The deity is the causal agent behind this, and there's absolutely nothing to justify it. It is just believed
false.
on faith.
But John, you
No, it's
don't
not.
even
It's
believe
not.
what you're
You're-
saying.
Your idea is that faith is blind, and that's
But-
false.
But John, you don't even believe what you're saying, because if somebody came to you and said the same story you just gave, right, that somebody was healed in a way that had never been medically documented before, but this was the result of praying to multiple gods, like if somebody was a polytheist, and that was their testimony, you wouldn't say that this is evidence that polytheism is true.
Yeah,
Like-
I would agree.
But then you think it's evidence. What? How can you?
Is it possible that polytheism
It's
is
something-
true? Is it possible that there's more than one God?
No, I think that ultimately just causes collapse. No.
I don't understand that.
So
You-
there's no justification for that.
That's false. You just never.
If there
we're
can
not-
be one God, there can't be more than one God.
No, so I hold to something called a necessary being, right? The idea, and
I
Cease
guess that's
knows
what you
this.
believe in.
Yeah, so a necessary being, necessarily, polytheism is false within a necessary being framework.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
have
well,
a
you
necessary.
don't know if your framework is true. You don't know how the supernatural realm works. You don't know if multiple gods are possible in this supernatural realm. You have no understanding or knowledge of how the supernatural realm works.
Somebody could say that
No, it's
just
a
because you call it
philosophical
necessary doesn't make it. Like somebody could say that it's necessary that there are multiple gods, and have that view, right? Like, I'm not saying
It's a
obviously I don't
perfectly
believe that.
permissible view to have. Yeah.
No, so I would disagree with that, Cease, because ultimately when we're looking at a necessary being, we're saying that there is one cause. We're saying that is, whether you want to look at omniscience, whether you want to look at
I'm back.
omnipotence,
My bad.
and the other omni attributes.
And
we are
we're
just
saying there can be more than one.
Okay,
Neither one of
Cease,
us is more right than the other person.
Hey, Cease.
Yeah.
Let me walk him through a deductive argument from contingency momentarily, just to see where he lands, and then you can put your input in. Just let me finish with him. Is that all right?
Yeah, it's not my life.
I know you and I have done this. So, all right. Do you believe contingent things exist?
Probably.
Okay. Do you know what a contingent thing is?
It depends on other things, basically.
Okay, yeah. So it's something that can begin to exist, cease to exist, or something that could have been different, right? So
Sure.
premise one, contingent things exist. Agree?
Sure.
Okay. Premise two, the set of all contingent things, like if we were to take all contingent things and put them inside of a cup or a bowl, the set of all contingent things cannot be explained by contingent things without falling into circular reasoning. There cannot be an infinite regress of contingent causes. Do you agree? Yes or no?
Maybe there can. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it.
Well, then you go into circular reasoning, right? So,
Sure. I mean, does the electron pass through both slits at the same time? Yes or no? There are plenty of things that don't necessarily make good logical sense to human beings, but
there's nothing there's nothing illogical with the double slit experiment.
then explain how it works, because the smartest people that have ever lived have failed to do that.
Oh no, I agree. I think it's a great experiment, but that's not illogical. You're representing. You're not understanding what I mean by logical. I mean that it's violating the laws of logic. That's not violating.
It's been confirmed by the scientific method. That doesn't mean that it makes logical sense to human beings.
Hey, I gotta jump off, but thank you for having me on, Pearson.
Oh no, you're welcome.
And John, maybe.
Hey,
John,
see, if you want to talk, just shoot me a message. Because
Yeah.
I got a number anyway.
Yeah, why don't you come on my live tomorrow? We'll talk.
If TikTok's still around.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's good. Right. Okay.
The hearing
okay.
was
I'll catch
painful to
later,
watch.
Yeah.
No, but so specifically when I'm saying logical, I am talking directly about the laws of logic. I'm saying that it is logically impossible in the same way a square circle is logically impossible, right?
Sure.
The double slit experiment doesn't violate any logical it's not a logical contradiction for it to do one thing in observation and another thing without observation, right? It's just a difference.
It does things in the present that affect events that happened in the past. How does that work?
Such as what? What do you mean?
The delayed choice quantum eraser experiment.
Oh, you might have to walk me through that one. I thought you were talking about the double
I
slit.
could not give you the specifics of it, but there's a way to use beams that can split photons, I believe, and then they're detected. You split the beams several different times, and what it does is it ends up affecting what happened in the past, even though it's measured in the present.
Is this still the double slit experiment?
It's not really the double slit, but
Okay,
it's,
that's what I was talking about specifically because you mentioned the double slit, and so that's what I was
Yeah.
referencing. I don't know what this other experiment is. I'd be happy to look it up because I like
yeah, just
learning.
look it up on YouTube or something. An idiot like me is not going to be able to give you a good explanation of it.
Now, what was the name of it?
The delayed choice quantum eraser, I believe.
Delayed choice quantum. Okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah,
But
it's cool stuff.
okay, so anyway, second premise: the set of all contingent things cannot be explained by contingent things without going into circular reasoning logically.
Perhaps, sure.
Okay. So, conclusion: there is something necessary.
Seems
There's
like
some.
it. Yeah.
There's something self-existent, right?
That is the conclusion that's guaranteed by the premises. We don't know if those premises are sound, but that is the
Well,
conclusion.
I mean, you would just have to deny a premise.
No, I'm just saying we don't know if the premises are sound. We don't know if the argument's sound because we don't know for 100% certain if the premises are true.
Well, do you disagree with anything in the premises?
No,
Because this is gauging your epistemology, not mine.
I'm not disagreeing with them, but I'm also not omniscient.
Well, I'm not asking you for omniscience. I'm just asking for.
Well, I have
What
less
are
than
you-
100% certainty, but I'm perfectly confident in agreeing with the premises.
Okay. All right. So within something necessary, let me be clear. I came in here about miracles, but I do this on TikTok. I built my platform off this. My stance on miracles, it goes back to philosophical arguments for God. It goes back to the ontological argument. It goes back to the moral argument. It goes back to teleological arguments. It goes back to logical arguments. It goes back to all of these different things. Continuous cosmological arguments. The reason I am a Christian, the reason I believe in a God, is because of the culmination of arguments, not just saying, okay, I believe in a God because blind faith, right? That was what was getting me upset earlier, and I apologize. That's not what I meant to do. But the point is, and we can bring this kind of to a close because I know you said you have to go. The point is, in me talking about miracles happening, obviously I have priors that I have logically considered to where I say, okay, I believe it is more rational to believe a God exists and that a God is responsible for what we call reality than the other hypothesis. Now, I'm completely open to being wrong about that, right? Again, we're not claiming 100% epistemic knowledge through omniscience. We're saying, okay, listen, I could be wrong. And I think that's the point of an agnostic atheist as well, is they're not making a claim that God does not exist because they can't fulfill that burden.
Thank you for getting that right.
Well, dude, I've talked to atheists for years. And so, no, I will say on the other side of things, like, ultimately I feel like it's an avoidance of the burden of proof, but that's a different subject. We're a theist, we say, okay, we believe a God exists. There are Gnostic atheists, mostly like renowned atheistic philosophers, that they hold a Gnostic view toward certain God positions, maybe like theistic gods, not necessarily deistic gods. But that Gnostic position is, it has a burden of proof on itself. So, what I was bringing up with miracles and talking about a methodology is ultimately, and I think this is what it comes down to, there is nothing that you could see happen in front of your eyes that would convince you that it is evidence for a miracle. And I like I said, I think that's deeply because of like this presupposition that everything is natural to begin with.
I mean, you kind of said it earlier, though. You said that we could throw an infinite amount of hypotheses at it, and you also said what you were saying was a hypothesis. That's just a proposition made as a basis for reasoning without assuming anything about if it's true or not, right? A hypothesis needs to be tested. It's not assumed to be true until proven false.
Well, I would just say a hypothesis has got to be, a hypothesis has got to be justified, right? You've got to provide a justification for the burden of proof that you're bringing the hypothesis on. And so I didn't disagree with him when he said that there are infinite hypotheses, right? That wasn't my point of contention, right? That's when I said, well, yeah, you can include those in your hypotheses. And then when you said something about an infinite amount of hypotheses, and that is where I inserted something, but I wasn't denying that there can be an infinite amount. It's more so talking about, okay, if we're looking at all these hypotheses, and we say, okay, hypothesis one, what'd you call him? Hippo, the slappy...
Spanky, the purple magical hippopotamus.
Okay, Spanky, the magical purple hippopotamus.
He lives in my ass.
Right, so I can immediately, discount that because of the argument we did from contingency, right? Because a hippopotamus, it's specifically going to be represented by its parts. And so because it has...
No, he's not a real hippopotamus. He isn't contingent. I've chosen to define him that way.
Okay. So this is where you're going to end up kind of shooting yourself in the foot, right? Because if we keep going down this line and I say, okay, what other attributes does the hippopotamus have? Is it omniscient?
No.
Okay, it's not omniscient. Okay.
No,
doesn't
need to be.
Okay, is it omnipotent?
No.
Okay. Then I would just
he can
discount...
You can heal that little girl, but he can't...
it was a guy.
He can heal that guy, but he can't heal girls there.
Okay. Is it omnipresent?
No, he lives in my ass.
Okay, that's cool.
Well, he doesn't actually live in my ass. He's sort of like Jesus, he was fully God, but fully man. He was born in Bethlehem, but he's actually also God, which means he existed before the entire universe existed. Spanky's kind of like that too.
Okay, so what I would just do, right? So if this was actually like a real conversation, I would just say, okay, if you believe, I believe it was Jesus, and I believe it is because they prayed in Jesus' name, it happened at a Christian service, it happened because it follows a prescription within God's given revelation to say that faith is what heals us, and the boy went up and he had faith, and I give all of these little points as evidence for my hypothesis, and you say, well, there's Spanky the hippopotamus, and I would just say, okay, now provide evidential points within the circumstance as why your hypothesis is better than mine.
Well, Spanky literally is a magical healer. That's actually all he does.
Okay, but how does that relate to the actual circumstance?
Because that makes him responsible for it.
No.
Kind of like Dionysus or like Zeus or Poseidon. We'll use Poseidon, that's easy. It's Poseidon's responsible for all events that happen in our oceans. He's the agent behind them. Spanky's the agent behind all healings that happen to young men.
Okay, but if we're
his
asking
definition and his nature.
Okay, but if we're hitting specifically on what happened in the event, I'm going to have more weight for my side than for Spanky the hippopotamus because of what transpired within the event.
I don't really see how that's the case.
Right, so I just have more evidential points.
If I say Poseidon is responsible for the 2004 tsunami, I have the tsunami and the earthquake and the fact that it happened, and it's not, I have everything.
No, I'm not
to back it up, because that's the nature of Poseidon. It literally describes what Poseidon does.
Yeah, but we can immediately just unverify that, right?
How?
Actually,
No, we can't.
using the scientific method.
How?
No, Poseidon made I know it was an earthquake, but Poseidon made the earthquake happen and then made the tsunami happen.
Okay, but now Poseidon would be operating outside of his realm of power because Poseidon doesn't have power over the tectonic plates. He has power
Yeah, he
over the
does.
oceans and the water and the sea, right? Just
How Poseidon
definition.
makes the sea does what it does is whatever. He's a god. He can do almost anything.
yeah, but that's a different god that has that domain, right? So, and I know we're just shooting the shot right now, but the point is,
Pretty much. I also have to go take care of that dog very soon here.
yeah, my dog is laying right next to me. No, but the point is, I wasn't talking about the oceans. I was talking specifically about the gastroparesis peer-reviewed medical miracle. If you bring your hypotheses and you say it's Spanky, or you say it's Poseidon that caused this miracle, then it's just going to be like weighing the evidence on scales and what tips the scales the most. And so that's where I would say I have more evidential coins on my side of the scales if I'm taking into account what happened in the event
if yours-
with the person.
Sure, if yours has a probability of 0.9999999, so all others would have a probability of less than that because the probabilities only go up to 1. Let's say yours has a probability of 0.99999. We still have an infinite number of hypotheses that will then add up to infinity. And we have a probability of infinity.
Yeah, but so again, within those probabilities and within those hypotheses, it doesn't really matter. You can have an infinite amount, but ultimately we're asking the question, what is the best hypothesis out of the infinite amount?
It's more so what hypothesis can we
Yeah,
test?
well, the problem is like, well, there's more to this, but I think we got to table it. I really do actually have to. I should have gone like
No,
10
hey, we
minutes
can
ago.
we can
but-
have another conversation. I know, like I said,
That's fine.